Hello there, World of Tankers. Welcome to the channel. I'm, of course, your host, World of Blitz, and hopefully all of you are doing well out there, because in today's video, we're going to be talking about a very weird and specific Tier 10 vehicle. One that not a lot of people play, and as well, not a lot of people love or care about at all. And I can see why. There's a lot of reasons to this vehicle not being on everybody's bucket list as a Tier 10 tank. Now, there are many Tier 10s in the game, and almost every single Tier 10 has its own unique playstyle. The Sheridan's got high alpha, great mobility, and light tank camouflage. You move over to the T-57 Heavy. It's a clipper, 400 damage, 1200 in the whole clip. It's a crazy, crazy vehicle. Even the IS-4, even though it's not super exciting, it's still very unique in the amount of hit points it has, the gun, how much armor. Every Tier 10 usually has some sort of strong point that not really any other Tier 10 kind of has a value on, kind of like the FE4202, where it's got the Hesh, and no other Tier 10 really has Hesh like the FE4202, but then you look at another medium like the Progetto, and this vehicle's got an auto-reloading capability that no other medium has. You know, the TVP, there's so many different Tier 10s in the game, and there's only a few that are kind of similar to each other, like the M60 and the M48 Patton. However, there is one tank that kind of encompasses a lot of Tier 10 vehicles, and that is the T95E6. Now, this tank has the same gun practically as a T110E5. There's a slight difference on the aiming time, dispersion, but overall, they're pretty much the same gun. The E6 has 374 millimeters of heat penetration, enough to butter through enemy opponents with ease. But to counter that, the most comparable tank to this vehicle would be the Chieftain Mark 6. Not only hull down do these vehicles have very similar turret armor and hull down capabilities, but as well, both of the tanks have the exact same top speed of 42 kilometers per hour, and I play them almost identical, although the E6 is more played like a medium because it's much, much faster on power to weight ratio, and the Mark 6 is played more like a heavy tank, at least in my personal playstyle. But there are a lot of big differences, and most of them are just disadvantages for the E6, and that's why not a lot of people really like the tank. The biggest disadvantage for the E6 is the damage per minute. The Chieftain Mark 6 is sitting at just about 3,000 base DPM, which of course is an extremely high amount when you think about it. The fact that a heavy tank has not only got great hull down capabilities and great accuracy, and Hesh is fantastic, and the E6 has great hull down capabilities, but it doesn't really have the DPM that you really wish another vehicle like it would, where my Mark 6 would easily punch shell after shell after shell into enemy IS-4s. This tank, not necessarily as much, but it does have that fantastic heat pen that the Chieftain Mark 6 doesn't carry. While the Mark 6 does have decent premium penetration, it's nowhere near as good as the heat on the E6. Second of all, the Chieftain, not the E6, I was about to say the Chieftain Mark 6, but the E6 also has better mobility. As you can see here, easily staying up at top speed all the way until making my way up top here. Wow, that E4 was extremely close to hitting our weak spot, but thankfully missed it by just a hair, which is of course great for me. Let's aim in a heat shell right onto the enemy IS-4 and reverse as quickly as possible. Obviously, I don't want to get domed by the enemy T110E4, and I'm hoping that my teammates don't either, because, yeah, could end up in a pretty sloppy situation here. Now, the enemy IS-4 can be a very deadly tank, but because we've got so much heat penetration, even though he went right through, what? Okay, that made no sense. There's a lot of pens that I'll pass and say, like, yeah, you did a good job. You penned through my weak spot. That penetration actually made no sense whatsoever. He went right through my turret at a completely armored angle. That made no sense. But we're still getting some decent shots out here. There you go. That's more what I'm talking about. That guy completely whiffed that shell. And right now, what we're doing is just holding off the enemy team. This IS-4, he's getting pretty antsy, and I've got to stop him from trying to rush me here. Obviously, I don't want that to happen to me. But at the same time, we could just get a nice little snap right into the lower plate of the enemy IS-4. He's doing some aggressive stuff, but obviously, I also have more DPM than the enemy IS-4. I've got a very, very nice gun. Very more, yes. I do have more DPM in general, which is obviously good for me. That means I have the ability to continue slapping shell after shell after shell into the enemy IS-4. There you go. There's another nice bounce from his tank, so we're going to get a nice heat right into his vehicle. He still has a dead driver. This E4 has a damaged ammo rack, which is great for me overall, because that means I'm able to get some really, really nice things done to the enemy IS-4. There's another heat shell going into his tank, and with that, he's not feeling too well. He's actually bleeding quite a bit to our tank. And this is where the E6 really does do a fantastic job of just getting shell after shell after shell out. Now, I do got to be careful here. obviously vehicles like that E4 can pose a very, very big threat. And this IS-4 here, he's obviously, he's not liking me too much. That's what I'll put it at. He is not enjoying my company all too much. There's a perfect bounce from the enemy E4, and with that, we are putting on our adrenaline. We're going to try and get a nice little slap into the enemy IS-4, like so, and there you go, he is finished off. So with that, the first game, you saw that the E6 did everything it needed to. It was able to work easily, haul down against an enemy IS-4, one of the deadliest tier 10s in the game. We pretty much made seem like a piece of cake, even though it did get a weird penetration on me. Nonetheless, a perfect max roll there with precision fire on the last shot. And we did just about 4,000 damage for that game, which is a really respectable amount, of course, for a tier 10 vehicle. In fact, I've always enjoyed playing this tank. The first reason why it actually is quite strong in certain scenarios is because not a lot of people play it. And when not a lot of people play it, that means that not a lot of people know about the armor profile, how to go up against it, especially because this tank can be played as a pseudo-heavy and medium. It can do a lot of rolls, which is very flexible on any map. It can change position very quickly, and it can deal with a lot of stressful situations where, let's say like an AMX MLE-54, a Krondong, or most heavy tanks, they're too immobile to actually change position or get in the position quick enough to stop a flank or a push from an enemy team. But that also carries a lot of downsides. But of course, let's load into one more battle and see if we can keep up the goodness like the first game, because usually it can be quite hard to get out an extremely good game in the E6. While it is a great vehicle in certain scenarios, and one really nice thing about this tank is that when you play it like a medium, you've got way more penetration and a lot more average damage than mediums. The issue is, on a map like this, against super heavies like, let's say, the IS-4, it is tricky. While you do have more DPM than an IS-4, and while your penetration is plenty to butter through the tank, it's very, very hard sometimes to still beat the IS-4. You have to penetrate an extra shell to, first of all, even out the damage an IS-4 deals. And let's aim in right on that grill, of course. Let's get a... I never understand why the grill is such a stupid tank to pen. I also know now that he's not the best of players because he's not running Spall Liner. That's a fun fact. If you ever shoot at a grill and you shoot HE, which I would highly suggest, if the player's not running Spall Liner, they are not a good player. That is just one bit of advice I can tell anybody that is a decent player, at least to know, because any smart player would be running Spall Liner on a grill, no question about it. Now, we do have a TVP right here, and obviously I'm going to aim an HE right on the side of his tank. I don't know what he thought was going to happen, but obviously as well, this TVP is not a smart player. Let's aim in one more shell. There you go, nice tap there. Oh, come on, let me back up. Don't, I gotta go all the way down. Come on, game. Well, good news is that we've already pretty easily smacked through part of their team. We've taken out a tier 10 auto-loading medium, taken an extremely deadly one at that, and as well, taken out the Patton, which is obviously very good. On the contrary, they still do have a lot of health left, like the Foch over here. That can be quite a tricky opponent to deal with. Now, unfortunately, my E75 decides to drive right in front of me and completely block me because teammates, am I right? Alright, you can have the shell there, E75, buddy. I'll let you do exactly what you want because you're just kind of annoying right now. We might actually lose this. That's incredible. We were going from having a very, very easy win to possibly losing this game. Now, there's a nice shot into the Leopard 1, and with that, we've also got, like, the Gorilla 15 over here, another extremely deadly vehicle. Our 57 Heavy, though, is sitting on the hill, which makes him pretty dang deadly. And we've also got some other tanks over here. But what I'm going to try and do right now is I'm going to try and hold this position. The Foch is right over here. Let's aim it in a heat shell. Ugh. Come on, Foch. Please pen me 75. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so happy that these guys at least pen their shells. Now, there is the Grill 15. That is, of course, a very, very deadly tier 10 tank destroyer. And with that, our E75 has no clue whatsoever that he's behind him. Not a great player, obviously. But let's see if we can get some shells out onto the grill. That was not the best of shots, but what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to rush this grill because I want to try and get as many shells out onto him as I can. So let's aim in on his lower plate. There we go. There's one nice shot. I'm going to face hug him. I know that the grill really struggles on the hull down capabilities, so, ooh, boy, though, that hurt quite a bit. Let's get another nice pen, and there you go. A little bit of a love tap. He's taken out. Now, obviously, with the IS-4 aiming in on my tank, that's a bit of a deadly thing. Let's load a heat shell right onto his vehicle, and with that, they don't have a lot of tanks left. They've got an IS-4 and, as well, a what is it? Well, they got a Leopard, so I got to be careful of those tanks in particular. But overall, not super worried right now. There you go. Just the bounce I needed. Let's aim at an AEP right on his lower plate. And because, of course, I do have a quicker reload than him, or at least I should have a quicker reload than him in theory, we're easily going to pop him right in the side and bounce him. Thankfully, I have a 57 Heavy here who was able to get the shell out nonetheless. So this game was weird. That's all I can say. This was a weird game. It was a wild world, but nonetheless, I'm getting shells out, and that Leopard is not enjoying life too much. We're just going to push him right now. This 57 Heavy's hopefully going to take a shot for me here. Well, we tracked him. I'll give you that 57. I did get a nice tracking shot in, but looks like that 57 is going to farm every bit of lasting HP. Oh, yeah, we got the shell out. I don't know why he took so long in that last shell, but you know what? That was a good game. Again, you could see there, the mobility of the E6 was good. Using the mobility and being able to get out of a tricky situation, an IS-4 or a slow-moving heavy would not have been able to do that. The fact that the E6 had the mobility gave it the chance to get out of a really bad scenario, and because of that, 4,822 damage is not a bad result by any means. You saw there that the great penetration was plenty to cut through even the thickest of armor. Unfortunately, we did dunk a couple shells into the tracks and other stuff like that, but yeah, that was a tricky game. That was almost a defeat. Thankfully, a couple of the enemy tanks were a little bit rart. So, yeah, the E6 overall, I do like it. I think it's actually a very fun vehicle, and it's very unique in the way it plays with its pseudo-heavy medium playstyle, but I wouldn't suggest for anybody to buy it. Until Wargaming removes that cupola, it's just too risky of a tank to play. What's the point? Just go play a Mark 6 or an AMX if you have it. Obviously, not a lot of people have it, but just play a Mark 6. You'll do better in a Mark 6, or playing E5, which is also, it's pretty much got the same DPM as you can see here, better dispersion, it's got the speed boost, it's got armor. Even though it's not as fast, the speed boost makes it just about as fast on repositioning, so E5 wins all day. Hopefully all of you enjoyed today's video. If you're doing well out there, please consider smashing that subscribe button. But other than that, I'll be seeing you in the next one. Bye-bye.